this is the path. So this is the path, right? This is the main path, meaning this is the main process. And this is the process that takes us to a state of complete and perfect awakening. Mm. And truth be told, I think most of us engage in Buddhist practice not necessarily thinking that much about complete and perfect awakening, uh, which is what, Buddha statues, Buddha images, Buddha paintings, what they are all representing is this state of complete and perfect Buddhahood. If you look up lists, of like what are the qualities of a complete and perfect Buddha, there are various different lists, but I bet you that whichever list that you look at, maybe for many of us, it's just so unimaginable that such achievement is possible. Then some of us might even just kind of, go, yeah. And it's easy then to just think, oh, to become awake is just to see things very clearly. Well, seeing things very clearly is good, the clearer we can see, the better. But as to what a Buddha, like Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha actually is something quite, unfathomable in a sense, right? So there's value in recognizing how unsurpassed this state is, unsurpassed, cannot be surpassed. There's value in kind of remembering how unsurpassed this state is. Because then we don't drag the state of awakening down to our level where we are able to understand. Of course, there's also a disadvantage to thinking that this state of complete and perfect awakening is so far over there. Yeah, that how in the heck am I ever going to even understand or much less reach that state? So there's also that danger. So then there's also all these teachings about Buddha nature. So I think in a way we're always walking. In a way, I like to see these tensions. I don't see them as contradictions. I see them as a very helpful, creative, productive tension. Walking this tightrope. On the one hand, unsurpassed, complete, and perfect awakening is so unimaginable. On the other hand, we are also reminded, right now as we are Buddhists, but there's a lot of mental defilements. There's a lot of afflictive emotions that are obscuring the Buddha state that we are. I think many other spiritual traditions also recognize this tension. Yeah? So like generally speaking, like for example, in Islam, God is the completely transcendent one. Yeah? God is completely transcendent. Nothing whatsoever that we know can be associated with God. And any attempts to associate anything we know with God, for Muslims is like considered a major heresy. But at the same time, the Quran also says, God is closer to us than our jugular vein. So God is closer to us, than our jugular vein is to us, right? So both are true, But here, this path to awakening, we are saying, like This is the process. This is the path that I'm taking. This is the process and the path that I'm taking to arrive at that inconceivable, complete, and perfect state of awakening. Simultaneously, it will take at least 3 incalculable eons, as well as which moment am I not a Buddha? Which moment am I not a Buddha is, of course, a kind of catch-22 statement. Well, the moment that I don't feel like one, I'm probably not one. The moment where it doesn't feel like one, well, it's probably not one right now, despite all the declarations that you are right now, you are right now. But if that reality doesn't kick in, right? That reality, that doesn't call an Uber for you, so to say, then it's useless, when you're stranded, so to say, right? So how to actualize this? So both, I think we should have it there. So in the structure of the 7-point Lojong, that's my one tune, right? My I feel, my one tune and maybe my contribution to this particular tradition and reading this particular text. I go back again and again to let's look at the structure, don't forget the structure, the internal logic of why 7 points. So the structure of this text is such that you have the preliminaries covered in one line, a one-liner for the preliminaries. That's point number one. Then within that one line, of course, there's all kinds of foundational stuff, foundational matters. That within this Lojong tradition, originally the people who studied this Lojong tradition, I mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again and again and again. Originally in the 10th and 11th century, which is when this tradition started in Tibet. This tradition started in Tibet when Atisha Sri Dipankara, Atisha is the name that Tibetans know him as Atisha. His personal name, Sri Dipankara. So when Atisha Sri Dipankara, this learned monk from Bengal, which today is partly in India and partly in Bangladesh. In fact, where he was born is now in Bangladesh. I had the great fortune to visit his birthplace in Bangladesh. Credit where credit should go. The Bangladeshi government, Muslim, have done a good job protecting many Buddhist sites, archaeological sites that they have protected. I was very impressed, actually, of how well they have protected these sites. So Atisha came from Bengal, then went to Tibet, And when he was in Tibet, his patrons, the kings of Western Tibet, this area called Purang, the kings of Western Tibet invited Atisha there to help in reviving Buddhism. Because Buddhism first arrived in Tibet like 100 to 200 years prior to Atisha's time. But between that initial introduction of Buddhism and Atisha's time, there was a deep decline of Buddhism, in part because the central Tibet royal family and dynasty that were patrons of Buddhism fell apart. This is the danger of Buddhism being supported almost exclusively, right, by the royal family. So then when that fell apart, then the support for Buddhism fell apart. So anyway, Atisha came at this time where these kings of Western Tibet wanted a revival of Buddhism. So Atisha taught uh, 3 decades, I think, at least like 30 years in Tibet, something like that. But it was said that this Lojong tradition he did not teach publicly. He only taught this Lojong tradition to his most advanced disciples. Now we teach this to beginners. I don't know, a little bit strange. Uh, Neither here nor there, we can't say, okay, sorry, guys, we're not going to continue anymore. This is only for advanced practitioners. You can't, put the toothpaste back into the tube. Uh, we're already squeeze it out, right? But at least we should understand the context then. So many of these statements here are pithy, deliberately so because it's the advanced and senior disciples that are hearing these pithy instructions. Some word, some vocabulary immediately hints to them, points to them what they should know. And so, like the first statement, first engage in the preliminaries, right, or the foundational matters. And so immediately, these senior disciples, these advanced disciples, they know, okay, our teacher, Lord Atisha taught so many, all these foundational matters. So in the commentaries, in the books that you've been reading, I'm sure they talk about like the 4 thoughts that turn the mind or the 4 thoughts that change the mind, things like that. And even beyond, such as like the 4 Noble Truths, that's how many of us were introduced to the Buddha Dharma. And again, another footnote, that's not necessarily how Tibetans learned the Buddha Dharma. They didn't get teachings on the 4 Noble Truths until, fairly, if you took an interest. I mean, they were just born, right? They were born into that culture. They never got that lecture, how God is 3 and God is 1. Just like most Christians, never quite got, a systematic presentation of how God is 3 and God is 1. Likewise, many didn't get 4 Noble Truths unless they sign up for the monastery. But that's part of our context, So that preliminary is good to have. It's good to understand the preliminary of karmic causality, how karmic causality is the fundamental way in which both confused existence and liberation, both states play out, in accordance with the principles of karmic causality. So that's important preliminary. So all those under the first point. Second point is the main training. And the main training is very nicely just summarized by saying, well, what is the main training? What is the main path? What is the main process? The main process is actualizing the 2 bodhicittas, ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. They are not 2 different things, but they're 2 sides of the same coin. Ultimate bodhicitta pertains to wisdom. Relative bodhicitta pertains to love and compassion. In fact, one could even argue that ultimate bodhicitta cannot be ultimate bodhicitta if love and compassion isn't lurking around there. And relative bodhicitta is not really relative bodhicitta if there's no one understanding whatsoever of the wisdom of emptiness. Maybe mouth and words. You could say, oh, this is relative, this is ultimate bodhicitta, it's like this, it's like this, like this, like this, like this. But if it is not informed by, if it is not motivated by, if it is not sustained by uh, love and compassion for all beings, then it's probably not even ultimate bodhicitta. Only on paper looks like that, right? So mainly in this Lojong tradition, yeah, what method do we use? What path do we use? What is the process for arriving at the ultimate and unchanging state, the unsurpassed state of being awake, of being Buddha, through cultivating the two bodhicittas? Yeah, so here you do not see any reference to, say, for example, deity yoga. You don't see the creation stage and the completion stage being taught here. You don't see Trecho and Togya in the Dzogchen system of training. You don't see, the fivefold path of Mahamudra, the Drugungkagyu way of practicing Mahamudra. It doesn't have anything like that. And at one point, I believe there were practitioners, in 11th century Tibet, 12th century Tibet, who grounded themselves primarily in this tradition, in this approach. Now, it doesn't mean that they were not doing other practices, but they were doing other practices using this as the main framework. Yeah, so maybe when they were doing, like, for example, Tonglen, relative bodhicitta training, and they're doing the Tonglen meditation. They didn't just do Tonglen meditation, uh, just like, how we tend to teach Tonglen these days. Oh, yourself, you are feeling suffering. Now breathe in, everyone's suffering. Let your suffering be the basis of kind of empathizing with others and taking their suffering. Breathe in and then dispel all that suffering, and then breathe out happiness and give to others. They probably combined it with deity yoga, meaning, and this is a much better way to practice Tonglen. First, tap into, first, ground yourself in. I am Tara. My nature is Tara. My nature is generosity. My nature is Vajrapani. My nature is Buddha Shakyamuni. My nature is Vajrasattva. Then from that, that state, then breathe in all that suffering. No harm, because all this suffering cannot harm Vajrasattva. It may harm, Han. It may harm, Melissa, but cannot harm Vajrasattva. So bravely you can breathe in. And then what else would Vajrasattva have but love and compassion and happiness? So naturally, Vajrasattva breathe out love and compassion and happiness for all. Mhm. But the main framework of, what does the path to awakening consist of? Consists of actualizing the two bodhicittas. So that's the second point. This third point, uh, how to carry adversities, and make adversities part of the path to awakening. And this is when things get tough, What should we do? So these lines here, yeah, yeah, these lines here are the pith instructions, the core instructions on what to do when the bleep hits the fan. In other contexts, when the bleep hits the fan, we say, remember that this is the guru. huh? That bleep that just hit the fan, it's the guru's compassion coming to uh, coming to help you advance, your process. Can you see that illnesses? Can you see that difficulties? Can you see the drudgery of, waking up and going to work is the guru? Ah, can you see, like right now, like maybe something is going on, you're so occupied and so distressed, can you see that that's the guru? So that's another approach. The approach here is to say, no, not no to that, but the approach here is to say, when adversities, when difficulties, when challenges turn up, what should we do? The first point, when the world and its inhabitants are filled with harmful actions, transform adversities. So that's basically summarizing this whole third point. Transform the adversities into the path of into this process for awakening. So Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche calls this the manure of experience. Shitty experience. Pardon my French. A shitty experience is that manure that is the fertilizer for this field of bodhicitta. You don't need to order, a fresh, load of manure. It will come, by itself. This very well-known Theravada teacher who wrote a book called, right, Who Ordered This Truckload of Dung, by Ajahn Brahm. It's a pretty good book, actually. Title of the book is Who Ordered This Truckload of Dung, inspired by a real incident. Like, they woke up one day and somebody delivered a truckload of dung to the monastery. Probably right around now, although they're in Australia, it's the opposite, right around preparing for spring, somebody ordered a truckload of dung, and when a truckload of dung gets delivered, we all have amnesia. We're like, who ordered this? Who ordered this? But when this truckload of dung arrives, and we turn them into manure of experience. The manure of experience is what is necessary for realization to arise. So in the Tibetan tradition, they often refer to this as nyam and tok. Nyam tok. Nyam is experiences. Experiences could be pleasant, could be unpleasant, but it's not just general experiences. It's the experiences that arise with regards to when we are on the path. So they could also be pleasant experiences. Pleasant experiences offer one kind of challenge, unpleasant experiences offer another kind of challenge. It's a matter of whether we know how to relate to them or not. That either they can turn out being friend or foe. Pleasant experiences, if we grasp at them, then eventually become full. Unpleasant experiences, when we let them motivate us to uh, stay, on this path to awakening, they become friend. So anyway, here it is talking about taking adversities. So then, taking what is commonly considered to be difficulties. So here it says harmful actions. And you can see all kinds of harmful actions going on in the world. Take them uh, into your process. So don't reject them. So how do you take them? How? Well, the other lines in this section tells us how. Drive all blames into one. What's that one? That one is the fault of self-grasping. So blame it on that guy. Self-grasping. So don't drive the blame onto you. Don't drive the blame onto the 8-year-old you, or the 15-year-old you, or the 22, or for that matter, the 50-year-old. We have this, we sometimes, thinking that, oh, this is Dharma practice, right? Uh, we blame ourselves, whatever version of self that we are fixated on. Usually, the version of self that we're fixated on is particular, right, points of trauma, the way we talk about it now. And then we fixate on that. Then we say, that's me. Then that me that was not loved, when I was 8, and that me that was, wronged when I was 16, that me that was ignored when I was 22. Then we think, oh, now I just drive all blames onto one, I'll blame that. It started with, the babysitters. Mom was never there, right? So you're fixated on that version of you. Right? Then now you think, oh, drive all blames on the one. That's the one. No, the one is not there. Right? It's not the 8 that was neglected. It's not the 16 that was harmed. It's not the 22 that was disappointed. It's not the 50 that is with regrets. It's the self-grasping. It's the process. It's the habit of self-grasping. That's the culprit. So driving the blame is not like shoving everything, okay? Yeah, despite the language, driving blames into one is not shoving all your problems into. It's, can you see that it's coming from that? It's coming from self-grasping. Yeah, can you see that all adversities, all undesirable experiences arise from self-grasping? Self-grasping is something much more subtle than what we normally call ego, in a negative sense, like egotistical. Oh, that person, so egotistical. Self-grasping is something much more subtle. And egotistical, by the way, has a judgment, right? Place on it. So it's not useful language for our path. So don't use that word so much. The ego, the ego, the ego. There's a judgment there. Self-grasping is, in fact, from one perspective, a very natural, kind of normal process, But what we are taught to see is that this natural, whether you want to call it natural, normal, yeah, you could maybe say normal, this very normal process is quite understandable. So there's no judgment alongside to say, oh, bad person, you have self-grasping. No, no, no. It's part of the package, so to say. Yep. Much later is what could turn into egotistical. So then, yeah, I mean, call a spade a spade. So, if it is egotistical, yeah, of course, it's a judgment, and yeah, maybe you should be judged. You behave like such a jerk. But here, when we say self-grasping is the problem, it's not. It's no judgment is going on, but clarity. Yeah, to whatever degree we fixate, we try to solidify the sense of I, then me, then mine. To whatever degree we try to solidify, or a lot of times we don't even realize that we are trying. We think that that's just how it is, you know? So work on seeing that all our troubles, come from there. And so if we want to once and for all be rid of these troubles, go back to the root, right? And that root is self-grasping. That's the one. Blame, drive all this blame. I think the word blame is used because, right, again, when things go wrong, they immediately it's like, okay, who do I blame? Yeah, the power company. Yeah, the secretary of the department, my mom, the man. Then, after we become more sophisticated spiritually, then we blame me. Still, not yet. That blaming me is part of self grasping. Which me are you talking about, right? This is what this line is wanting us to work with. Which me? Huh? When you say me, which me? So it's good you stop blaming outside. And now you turn inside. But even inside, don't so quickly think, oh, I got it. It's like, no, it's often again like the ego, right? Self-grasping, attending its own funeral and giving eulogies.
Dr. Light,
Yes.
hi. Is that fixating on one? I always kind of thought of it as fixating on my own part in the whatever's going wrong. Um, but it sounds to me that you can also address it to just the kind of universal habit of fixating.
Yes.
So, so just like say it's political turmoil out there,
Yes.
you can drive all the suffering that comes from that. You drive all that blame not into the guy with the red hat, but in our collective tendency to fixate on self-grasping.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so it goes all, it's universal as well as personal in
Right.
that way.
Yes.
Okay.
It's looking at patterns. Yeah. In a different context, I said, sometimes when we say, so another footnote, sometimes when we say, seeing things as they are, right? We sometimes think this is talking about how the therapist is helping you see things as they are. The Buddhists seeing things as they are is not so complicated. Things as they are is basically seeing their empty nature. That's it. That's what you need to see. So when we say to see clearly, we don't mean see clearly how all the different things that came together that then cause you to behave this way or that way. That, please continue to go to therapy. They will help you sort that out. But the seeing things as they are here, is talking about seeing emptiness, seeing insubstantiality, seeing impermanence, change, seeing the unsatisfactory nature of experiences whenever the eye turns up. It's seeing those things. They do say when you see that, when you see this emptiness and see it in a very complete, thorough way, it does unlock the ability to be the supreme therapist. As in, now you can actually see very clearly also how someone's karmic stuff is playing out with seven other people's karmic stuff, who is related to, each of the seven is related to 12 other people and their karmic stuff. You can begin to see that whole, arising, interdependent arising of all the various and sundry types of sufferings and happinesses. So the super therapist, so to say. And Buddhas have that trick under their belt, so to say, so that they can do what? Not to solve people's domestic problems, not to solve people's mental health problems, not to solve people's, whole gamut of problems, but to solve people's ultimate problem. They have that ability under their belt, and they use that ability to point people to seeing the nature of things. Yeah, so here, indeed, yeah, it's seeing the 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 pattern of self-grasping, not the details of. I mean, you will have insights into the details of your self-grasping, but just understand that that's not the main thing, and don't get then stuck there. Yeah. Now the next line, again, it's always there. Not always. Often you'll see in this Lojong statements here a balancing act going on, right? So the driving blames into one is sort of like the right. Despite I say, it's not judgment. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's the. But now you balance it with cultivate the awareness of the great kindness of everyone. So this is cultivating the ability to recognize kindness. So that book that we covered at one point, Awakening Through Love, has all these techniques on cultivating how to recognize kindness. Kindness in the abstract, kindness in the small acts of kindness that we witness every day, but we just kind of ignore, or we become cynical even when we observe some kindness going on. We say, that person is probably la 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 la. meditate, meditate here, cultivate, cultivate, recognizing, seeing the great kindness of everyone. The next couple of instructions, two lines for one and one line for the next. There are 2 points basically, or two things. It's 4 and 4. So this again, it goes as a pair. Uh, Drive all blames into one while at the same time meditating on the great kindness of everyone, right? One, everyone. You see that? Yeah, that play there, right? It's not accidental, you know. Mm. Then the next is 4 and 4. So on the one hand, you know, cultivate seeing how confused appearances are the 4 kayas. And this is the unsurpassable protection of emptiness. So when we say, you know, cultivate, meditate on emptiness, or cultivate this wisdom of emptiness, what is this in this context? Is to see how confused existence, even though it's confused, it nonetheless, underneath that confusion, are what's known as the 4 kayas. So there's the nirmana kaya, which in the case of talking about Buddhas, then we are talking about the specific time, the specific manifestation of the awakened state, specific to time and space. So nirmana kaya are the form bodies. Sambhoga kaya are the enjoyment bodies. This is referring to how, for the awakened ones, you know, there is a natural quality in them that they are naturally, so this expression enjoyment is, that's the connotation, that even without choosing, they have this enjoyment body, which is a more subtle body that you and I, you know, may not notice, but they are in that dimension of being that is continuing to guide and to protect beings from suffering, principally through guiding and teaching. Now, really, the Buddhist equivalent of, you know, Jesus as savior is Buddha as teacher. It's that big deal, you know, to call the Buddha a teacher, because at the heart of our tradition is guidance is what we need, not salvation. Different system. So to call the Buddha a teacher is a big deal because that's the greatest gift that a Buddha can give us. Help us see clearly, guiding us to see clearly. And then Dharmakaya is the natural state of being awake. The fourth kaya is called the natural body. Is sort of the three indivisible is the fourth. This is Vajrayana, always 3+1. General Buddhism is always 3, 3, 3, and then Vajrayana always needs to add one more, you know, and the one is 3 add together 1. You can read more, you know, the various commentaries on these 4 kayas. There are more details. I'm just giving a kind of general overview. Yeah. And the 4 kayas, you know, there are some teachings like in the Dzogchen instructions and Mahamudra. where it relates to how, like, as it is everything in the state of Dharmakaya, which is the reality body. Body here really means like a dimension of being, right? Of awakened being. The Dharmakaya is the natural dimension. Sambhogakaya is, things are starting to percolate, but not quite fixed, not quite clear yet, And Nirmanakaya is a concrete manifestation. Likewise, our confusion also go through this process of, it's kind of universally present, then it begins to percolate, then it turns into real trouble. Yeah, so part of the instruction here is to say, can you see, right, the way your confusion arises? It arises according to the same principle as how the 3+1 kaya manifest. Yeah, in other words, also here it's saying not only are things empty, right? Because this is about the unsurpassable protection of emptiness. Not only are things empty of inherent being, empty of self nature, empty of essence, but this very emptiness is also what allows things to manifest. Now, when things manifest, when things appear, when things turn up, they can either turn up as suffering or they can turn up as happiness. Up to us. There were many, I'm sure, due to their karma and their particular karmic baggage. When they saw Gautama the Buddha, Shakyamuni, they were annoyed. Oh, since he and his disciples moved here, the rest of us can't get a decent meal. Ugh, when is he gonna leave? Yeah, so even a Nirmanakaya is in their midst. It's arising, that Nirmanakaya is arising as a source of suffering for these guys. Yeah, so this is like mm, the the four kayas. Right? Mm. Then the other four, it's much more concrete in terms of things that we can do, practices that we can do, right? So to complement, maybe you could say, meditating on confused appearances as the four kayas is the unsurpassable protection of emptiness. You could say that is the inner attitude that you need to cultivate and develop. But don't do that, according to this tradition, without also understanding the best of methods is the four practices. So the last point pertains to wisdom. This next point pertains to merit, which is also pertaining to love and compassion. So the four practices, it says. What are these four practices? One is accumulating merit, generating good, relentlessly, uninterruptedly. Always remember, whatever opportunity that I can to accumulate merit, accumulating not for yourself, but think of it as bringing more good into the world, manifesting more good in the world, creating more merit. So accumulating merit through body, speech, and mind by making offerings to our teachers, to the three jewels, or to those who are needy. We say, we offer to our teachers, we offer to the three jewels, we offer to the Dharma, we offer to the center out of admiration for their qualities. We offer to the needy out of being sympathetic to, right, the state that they are in, the suffering that they are experiencing. So, on the one hand, accumulating merit, on the other hand, purifying, clearing our negativities. Purifying, again, one of these things, increasingly, I don't like that word because it causes some confusion, you know. Purify your suffering. It's like, what? Suffering cannot be purified. Suffering can only be cleared. Like, so this bag here, yeah. If I think I'm going to purify this bag, so I wash it, you know? Wash. Oh, now pretend, okay, wash. Okay, now it's back. And then, like, oh, that stench is no more there. Okay, yeah, success, right? So what we're removing is not this design, you know. That would be putting this into bleach and come out as like, ah, what happened? Yes, so it's not purifying negativities or purifying suffering, it's clearing. Clear, clear. Sang, to clear. Sang or jang. To clear our negativities, to clear our, you know, afflictive emotions, to clear our mental defilements. And the third and the one and two again, right? They go hand in hand. Accumulate merit, clear demerit, so to say. Create more supportive, conducive, good circumstances for the world. Remove harmful, detrimental things from the world. 3 and 4 again works together as a pair. On the one hand, it says, make offerings to malevolent spirits. On the other hand, make offerings to Dharma protectors. Yeah. Almost feels contradictory, you know? Because, like, you say, oh, make offerings to Dharma protectors. Okay, why? Because they will get rid of problems for us. What are the problems? Malevolent spirits. Yeah, whether we think in concrete terms, you know, that there are these malevolent entities running around, or malevolence coming from, you know, conflict that has arisen between us and other people. Here it says, you know, whenever obstacles arise due to malevolent forces. So here it's saying, like, even when you recognize, you know, like, it's not just the ripening of my negative karma, I can actually trace, you know, this source of problem to a specific person or persons, you know, out of malevolence, wanting to harm me. It says, at that time, train to be grateful and make offerings to them. Recognize also that Why they are up to no good is because they are being tortured by their negativity. And once they are tortured by the negativity, uh, they only know how to lash out. Misery loves company. You can't find company, create miserable company. So it's cultivate, compassion. See that the trouble that people bring you is because they are troubled. Pray for them. In that sense, make offerings to them. Also, make offerings to Dharma protectors. There are these beings. In fact, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas sometimes manifest as protectors. So, also make offerings to Dharma protectors. Here, I can add to say that here is about doing, invoking Dharma protectors to help others who are helpless, rather than. But you can see, in Tibetan culture and history, there's a long-standing history of people invoking Dharma protectors to go kick the asses of other people. Yeah, I mean, we tend not to, Western Dharma people don't do that, unless you get caught up too much in all this Dharma protector business, then like people who like this Dharma protector business and they like, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and then the Dharma practice turns into, this like battling the Lord Voldemort, Uh, but that is pretty real, for many Tibetans, like in the old country, and the great lamas always criticize that. If you read their teachings, they always criticize that. Batu Rinpoche's Words of My Perfect Teacher, in many sections, he criticizes, like he says, all this sorcery, all this invoking Dharma protectors, to go harm your enemies. Of course, if they're authentic Dharma protectors, they won't do that, But there are, malevolent forces that are masquerading as Dharma protectors because they are reliant on you. When you make offerings to them, they feel good, but they will betray you, so to say. So here, Dharma protectors, if we invoke them for Dharma purposes and invoke them to protect others from harm. As for the harm that comes to us, right, we train to see them as the grace of the Guru. Then we become grateful. And also we develop understanding towards those who cause us harm. This is what it's saying here. So these are the 4 practices. And the last line here is, whatever unexpected turns up, relate it to your practice. Good or bad, whatever unexpected turns up. But mostly here, right, the main point here is adversities. So whenever unexpected adversities turn up, relate it to your practice. Some of us get in the habit of like, unexpected turns up, you're like, oh, I must have done my practice wrong. That's the opposite of relating it to the practice. Instead, we have to see, this is, I can bring it. So this kind of takes us back to that first point. It's like the wrapping up point, reminding us the first point, the first statement in this third point. When the world and its inhabitants are filled with harmful actions, transform adversities into the path of awakening. bring adversities onto the path of awakening, and carry them onto the path of awakening. So then, unexpectedly, when trouble comes, relate that to the process of waking up. Yeah, so kind of an overview of the third point. There's a recording where I taught this. Maybe I said other things. I don't know. And all the different commentaries that you are reading, maybe next week, between now and then, you can start reading your sections and share among yourselves. I figure it's better that I come once, not come twice, you have some time to chew on things. Of course, it's also my laziness talking. So, but next Sunday we have a temple event, so I have to be there. Sung last Sunday of the month, there is a smoke offering at the temple. And then some folks are coming from out of town, just a couple of hours away. I've agreed to meet with them and see how they're doing. They call themselves the Three Valley Sangha, a small group in Davidson, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, which is 2 hours away. I used to teach there, but they call themselves the Three Valley. Unofficially, they call themselves the Three Valley Sangha, picking up from Milarepa and Marpa. Milarepa saying, you should live 3 valleys away from the teacher.
Oh, that's funny.
Some distance is good.
Pretty good.
Questions or comments?
That was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is probably not related at all in any way, but I was wondering, I've heard of a fifth kaya, Svabhavakaya.
Mhm.
What is that?
No, that's the fourth. Swabhavikakaya is the fourth. Swabhavikakaya.
Oh, I thought that was the Dharmakaya. Three,
Yeah.
then the Svabhavakaya.
Like Nirmana, Sambhoga, Dharma, Swabhavika.
Well, okay. You say it,
The unpronounceable.
pronounce it again?
Right.
Swabhavikakaya.
Waba, okay, Vika.
Swabhavikakaya. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, but you are right too. There is a fifth kaya,
Oh, boy.
That's usually found that's usually found in Dzogchen material. It's always adding more stuff. There's no end. Yeah, if the awakened state has no end, I suppose, delineating the awakened state also has no end. So always the next term will add more, and then the next term discovered will add more and add more. And then at some point they'll go back to just one,
I have a question. Yeah.
Mhm.
In Chogyam Trungpa's writing, all these things, the Dharmapalas, the everything, they're entirely described as states of mind, neuroses.
Yes, yes,
And,
yes.
and I got here to Little Rock with people that were Nirmanakaya, Nyingma students.
Uh-huh.
And they're real to them. It's like, we gotta do this or this will happen. And there's just a different take on it. And I just struggle with that sometimes. The bridge
Yeah.
between what are you actually doing the smoke offering for? What are you offering the torma to? And even in Chokinima's world, you're like Lama Tenzin is entirely like you're feeding these beasts that are out there surrounding your
Oh yeah.
campground.
Oh, oh,
But
oh.
I keep thinking, but I've grown up thinking that they were just in my mind.
Well,
So I don't.
it's in your mind, but that doesn't exclude that being around you. Because what's around you is also in your mind.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
What's around you is also in your mind.
Yeah.
When we say that these are just in our mind, it doesn't cancel out like I'm in your mind, but when I'm not in your mind, I don't disappear. Trust me. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So yeah, it's both. So of course, Trungpa Rinpoche, when he arrived here, the context is such that again, and we have talked about this, yeah. If he lives on for another 30 years, then a more, I think, full picture of what he really thinks would come out. Then also he taught accordingly what made most sense for his audience. Then his editors also have a particular commitment to how things are, right? And so they added his works accordingly.
Well, and he may have told the other stuff to other people that is not in these books. In other
Yes.
words, I got a certain level of his teaching,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
there's
Right. Right.
something else.
Yeah. I have a student, as in like I taught college, and there was a student who grew up. She's like a second generation Tingnahan tradition, and both her parents, I think they call them dharmacharyas. Both her parents are teachers within the Tingnahan system. And I remember talking to her, and she was saying how she said, yeah, she said, yeah, it was in my intro to Buddhism class in college, and we're talking about these other things, and then she shared, she said, yeah, I thought, like growing up in the Thich Nhat Hanh community and going to retreats with him, like not every summer, but enough summers that. And she said, I thought I knew who he was. And then until I like went and see him teaching Vietnamese people, I was like,
Mhm.
wait,
Yeah.
what are you saying?
Yeah.
So this other side comes out, right? Um, which is precisely actually we're talking about this issue. This other side where um, you have to do prayers because there are these beings, that are stuck in the bardo, and have to do this and that, and so aside from the fact that yeah, the teachers would relate differently, and we got a snapshot. Aside from all of that, right? The more fundamental point from the Dharma perspective is, why should we think that only we human beings are real? Everything else that you talk about is symbolic. You know, I mean, imagine dogs walking around going, humans are just symbolic. But we are real woof.
Oh, I never thought of that. Thank you.
Right?
Absolutely. They're all laughing at me right now, all those
Yeah, they're
beings.
all laughing at you, and we are laughing at them, and that's the big irony,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Now, again, like to share, I have a hard time like still even now I can be honest to say I have a hard time to take exactly and say yes, there is this spirit being that has three horns on his head, and two of which is green and one is orange.
Mhm.
I have a hard time being going that far
Mhm.
in the details,
Mhm.
but I don't doubt that there are other beings here,
Mhm.
and they think that I'm symbolic, and I think they are symbolic.
Yeah.
You know, the very culturally specific uh, that I think is specific to the area, and I'm not even saying like it's culturally specific as in people mythologize things differently, but the culturally specific is related to, yeah, the beings that do, right, live in that area, do have three horns,
Mhm.
two of which are green and one is orange, you know.
When Chokinima teaches, he leaves this whole empty
Hmm.
space between him and the students.
Hmm.
Like a third of the room almost, or a quarter of the room, for the beings that we can't see that have
Yes.
come to teachings. And it's like, it's kind
Yeah.
of the whole time sitting there like, who are they?
Yes.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Right. Right.
But yeah.
And so part of the pedagogy there is, regardless, yes or no, you are to think,
Right.
and that causes us to shift our perspective, right?
Yeah.
So we can see that. So uh, in the Chinese tradition, there's a Confucian in the Confucius, his tradition of training. Confucius says, make sacrifices to the gods and the spirits as if they are there. Mm. And what he means by that is he says, no point engaging in ritual if the reverential heart is not there, if the mm, taking it seriously is not there. In that tradition, they come outright in a more kind of mm, you could say secular humanist. There's a strain of a strain of Confucian tradition that is what I would call secular humanist. In fact, they say, no, gods and ghosts, all these things are just symbolic. However, when you perform a sacrifice, which you should do, you should perform it as if they are there. Otherwise, they said the sacrifice will not work. And then they even say, and what do you mean sacrifice works? They say sacrifice works in changing people's attitudes, in changing people's hearts. So that resonates more with us, like more what you expressed, Cheryl, you know,
Mm.
uh, like, well, this is states of mind, this is, but it does not have to cancel out, that no, there are other beings. And it's possible to communicate and interact with them. It's possible to have a relationship with them. Now, of course, these Lojong teachings, I think like Lojong teachings, when the books are published, then again, editors get in the picture. So even if a Lama wants to say more, probably edit it out because the Lojong books are for general public. So I'm sure more than one editor has said, no, that's too weird. We got to take that out. That's just Tibetan superstitions. Could we leave that out?
For newcomers or new people or whatever, a lot of times Kensho Rinpoche will say, with the book you were just saying, whatever that is,
Words of my perfect teacher?
yeah, don't read that first part.
Yeah, the hell part, right?
Yeah, just kind of pass that by. You may not, because I mean that had a huge impact. I couldn't quite handle it. I mean,
Yes.
I'm better now, but I guarantee you, I don't think about it all the time. I have others. I have only so much room in my, in my head, in my day, and my all of this, and that's not that's not my hot choice.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But I do, I'll tell you, I think about it because I have one bowl and I think, Karen, put the water in the bowl, and I see it every morning. And then, because, oh, what is his name? Anyway, the guy shit, um, the guy that produced the soccer movie.
So can say Rinpoche, yeah.
Yeah. He said it's okay to just use one bowl instead of however many, but so I have one bowl. And then 2 days later, there's that water in that bowl. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to be into this, I got to stop it. And so I wear myself out about so many things that I just don't have time to worry about other things. Pick your poison, pick your good, whatever. But today was really good because it seems like we have just forever wanted to know what that meant. Place all blame. What's it say?
Drive all planes into one, yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know what that one is. But that's okay. I mean, I kind of do, but I have some contemplating to do on that.
Well, it's the contemplating that is the cultivating, you know?
Yeah.
That is the meditation. The contemplating is the cultivating. It's
Yeah.
not like this is not a belief system. It's not like I have finally convinced you to believe this. Now you are saved. No, that's not how it works. It 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 goes in, right? Like a vaccine, right? It goes in. Now it needs to produce, its antibodies, and then you might get a fever out of it, even, but it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Mhm.
has to get in the system and start to provoke certain things. So really, the Dharma works differently from, in other traditions. It's like, have I finally convinced you to believe this or not? Oh yes, now you're saved. Oh yeah, you think, but we forget, and we try to use that to measure our progress. Then we'll be disappointed, not understanding that actually, no, how this works in this system is that's what it's supposed to do. Pry open my stubbornness. Something got in. Now I don't know what's going on. Good.
I'm anticipating reading the news and getting pissed off like I always do, and then imagining buying Ron DeSantis a cone of his favorite ice cream.
Uh-huh.
Seeing and enjoying the smile on his face.
Yeah,
That's hard.
Yes,
Kind
yes.
of, but there is a relief when I can go there a little bit.
Exactly. Space. Finding some space when things get tight. There's always more space.
Mm.
Enough or not enough depends on how big we are.
Mhm.
Okay, so anyway, just want to, I guess, to say that in July we're going to have an in-person retreat, right?
Mm.
And that retreat is going to be on a particular healing Buddha, medicine Buddha practice.
It's what?
A medicine Buddha practice for that
Oh,
retreat. And I know some of you are coming to Asheville on the weekend of April 1st and 2nd. And the empowerment on the 2nd is that medicine Buddha practice empowerment. For the rest of you who are not able to be here, you can still participate through Zoom. And it's very nice if you also do that Zoom empowerment. And then when I come in July, of course, I'll give the reading transmission of the practice. And as for other people who don't have the empowerment and did not participate, medicine Buddha practice is general enough that it's fine, even that. But then, of course, if you can, on April 2nd, to participate from Zoom, then, that'll be good. It's on a Sunday, April 2nd.
Is there a liturgy?
Sorry?
Is there a liturgy?
Yeah, a
that we can-
sadhana that we will use for sure. But for the empowerment, you don't need that.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, to participate in the empowerment, you would not be needing that yet. But when, of course, also when you register, then you will be sent the text. Then, of course, we will also make that text available at our retreat. Yeah. But let me go look for I'm going to put it on the chat. Let me go look for the link for registration. It's over here. So if you look at your chat, Zoom chat, so that's the link, udharmanc.com /empower.
Okay.
You can register there.
I can send that link out on the email list.
Yeah, so that's it for today. You'll be good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody, stay well.
Goodbye, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I understand.